Hey guys, it's your boy Progress, and welcome to a brand new video. If you want to follow my other social media, I've got my Twitter and Instagram on screen in the description, so if you want, then go check those out. Today, though, is not a normal day. No, in fact, today is going to be the day where I expose someone for doing some not so great things. And without wasting any time at all, let's get into this. For those of you who don't know Young Bands, he's actually an American rapper that started gaining more notoriety back in 2017, but still has quite a bit of buzz around him to this day. But obviously, as you know from the title of this video, we're not here to be congratulating him on his successes. No, in fact, we are here to talk about some bad things that he's been up to. Which is that, unfortunately, Young Bands scammed a smaller artist out of $2,500. And in this video, I'm going to be detailing exactly what happened, as well as showing you guys a bunch of the red flags that should have been seen along the way, so that way if there's any smaller artists watching this video right now, you will be able to identify these things and make sure that they don't end up happening to you when dealing with artists that are larger. This all started back on July 18th of 2018 when a smaller artist named Fanto ended up messaging Young Bands about what his feature prices were because he wanted to make a song with him. Young Bands ended up responding back asking what his budget looked like. Now this isn't technically a red flag, but I will say that since Young Bands is the person of power in this situation, he should actually have a fixed rate that he does for all of his features, rather than having it just open to whatever the person can actually give him. Because it's not like he's selling a service or his time, he is selling a product that has not even been created yet, and he also cannot confirm how good or bad the product might end up being. So because he's asking for a budget, he may end up actually taking less money than he normally would for a feature without really telling an artist that he'll end up doing a lesser job on the track for them. Just something to think about. But anyway, Fanto does end up saying that he's got $2,000 that he can pay Young Bands, and then Young Bands asks if he's Zelle ready, which this is the true first red flag. For those of you who don't know what Zelle is a money transfer app that has absolutely no purchase protection or fraud protection at all. Essentially meaning that if you send your money to someone and they just walk off with it and don't give you whatever it was that they were supposed to give you, then there is no system in place whatsoever to help you be able to get your money back. In fact, the company Zelle actively tells its own users that unless dealing with someone you actually know, then you should not use their service because they cannot help you at all if you end up getting scammed. And the same thing goes for Venmo and Cash App. Do not use these things when you are trying to give money to rappers or to anybody whatsoever if you don't know them. They do not have fraud protection or purchase protection. You have 100% higher chance of getting scammed if you end up using those. And I don't want to hear that, oh, Cash App has some form of purchase protection. No, the only thing that they have protection for is if you end up getting their cash card, which is their own personal debit card, so it's essentially useless unless you're doing a purchase with that. I want to make it insanely clear that the only service you should be using when it comes to transferring money to these rappers or to whatever else it is that you're trying to use for money transfer apps, use PayPal. That is the only thing you should ever accept is PayPal. And don't let any of these people try and convince you, oh yeah, just use the friends and family option because then there's no tax on it as well as it's faster. No, they are trying to scam you if they try and tell you that. I am telling you that right now. You need to use the paying for a service or item option. That is the only option that gives you full purchase protection and fraud protection if the person ends up trying to walk away with your money. So please, stop letting yourselves get scammed by these rappers because this is exactly the type of stuff that they get away with all the time. But anyway, back to what happened. Fanto then asked Young Bands how much he actually wanted for the feature, as well as included that he does have Zelle, and Bands responded asking him what the most was that he could get to him by that day. Once again, this is the semi-red flag I was talking about earlier, where he is trying to get the most money he can out of somebody rather than actually having a fixed rate that is understood. Fanto says that he can get him $2,500 that day, and Bands asks if he's ready to send it right away. Fanto confirms that he can send him $2,000 right away, but then the other $500 later. Bands says he'll request the $2,000, which he does once they end up trading information. And then Fanto sends him the $2,000, which Bands receives, and then tells him he needs to send the song to his engineer. engineer. Fanto did end up being able to send the song to the engineer. The next day, Fanto asks Bands if he's got the song, as he got no response from Bands the day prior, and Bands then responds saying that he's still waiting because it takes 3 days for the money to get to his account. Then another day later, Fanto asks if he got the money yet, and Bands says no. Then another 2 days later, on July 22nd, 2018, Fanto messages again saying the money got taken from his account now, so he wants to know if it worked, and Bands says that it did, and then basically immediately requests the other $500. He then also says that he should have the song back within the next 2 to 3 days, and hearted Fanto's response showing that he paid the other $500. You want to take a guess as to what happens next? Go ahead. Try and guess it. If your guess was that Young Bands completely stopped messaging Fanto and never sent him his feature, well then you're right. What are you, a witch? But now, this is where the story somehow takes an even worse turn than it already had, because we introduce a new person whose name is Jake, and this is the manager of Young Bands. So let me explain what happened next. The interaction between Fanto and Jake actually ended up starting on August 9th, 2018, which was 2 weeks after Fanto stopped getting messages from Young Bands. Fanto had essentially sent an email to Jake because he knew that he was the manager of Young Bands and hoped that he'd be able to bring some sort of resolution to this problem that he was having. Which this led Jake to asking Fanto to send him the messages between himself and Bands to make sure he fully understood the situation, and then he apologized for what was going on. The one thing I actually find quite interesting as well is that Jake ends up telling Fanto that if there are ever any more transactions that he needs to do for the situation, they need to actually go through Jake as management, because then situations like this will not happen. Which once again makes me question what type of person Young Bands is if he is so untrustworthy as a person that his own management cannot even trust him to not scam people if the opportunity comes up to. And also, Young Bands would have 100% known that payment processes were supposed to go through management, so the fact that he completely ignored that intentionally, to me, makes it look like he was trying to do this to scam him from the start as soon as he realized that he could. After Fanto sent Jake all the proof, Jake then replied saying he would be calling Young Bands to get it taken care of as soon as possible, which obviously would have been absolutely fantastic if that's what actually happened. But guess what? Once again, it was silence. Now fast forward to March of 2019, which is almost a full year after he was originally scammed by Young Bands. And on March 8th, Fanto messaged Jake on Instagram saying he had emailed him before and got told that he would get his feature and things would be resolved, but feels as if he's been scammed. And Jake would not answer until March 21st, where he claimed that he never got any money from Fanto because the transaction was not done through him, but rather it was done through Fanto and Bands. Which I'm gonna say is another red flag, which you might be confused as to why. Now, I'm not saying at all that this is 100% what happened, but I will say that I'm a little bit skeptical when Jake tries to say he got nothing out of this situation. The reason why I say this is because if you go back to the original emails that were sent from Jake to Fanto, Jake had said, quote, "In the future, please make sure all business transactions are done through management to avoid stuff like this from happening," end quote. And on top of this, if you go back to the email Young Bands used to request money from Fanto on Zelle, the email was Young Bands MGT. Now, why does this matter? Well, it just so happens that the term MGT is an abbreviation in business that means management. So if that's the case, then that means the management account is the account that Fanto sent money to on Zelle. So my skepticism stems from the fact that although maybe Jake didn't know that this actually had gone on prior to talking with Fanto, there's a chance that since the money was in a management account and Jake is a manager for Young Bands, well, you kinda get what I'm saying. Once again though, it's just something to think about. But anyway, back to what Jake was saying. Essentially, his message to Fanto was that he was upset that Fanto was posting tweets around claiming he was scammed by Young Bands, Jake, and Lyrical Lemonade, and the reason Lyrical Lemonade was included is because Jake is also employed through them. Jake was worried that these tweets Fanto was making would negatively affect his image, so he said that Fanto needed to take them down and he would try to talk to Bands again about the feature. He also asked if it was okay that instead, he may have to just give Fanto a song of Bands that had an open verse on it that he could then give him if that ended up being easy easier, I see this as another red flag because of the fact that Jake seems to be so much more worried about the negative attention that these tweets may give to him over the fact that there is a person he lied to like almost a year ago and did not help at all with getting him his feature. Fanto then apologized for his tweets, but he said he would delete them and then said he would once again send the proof that he paid for a verse, as well as stated that if it made it any easier to finally resolve things, he would accept the open verse from young bands rather than a feature. Which from there, Jake said that he would talk to bands again, get Fanto the open verse, and have it to him by tomorrow at the latest. Fanto took the tweets down, they both then said they were happy to finally try and resolve things in a proper manner, and then Fanto told Jake to message him when he's got the verse. And guess what again? Silence! The 1-day waiting time that was promised by Jake came and went, and so did another whole week, with absolutely no communication from Jake whatsoever. It wasn't until March 29th when Fanto messaged Jake again asking for an update, and Jake responded saying, "My bad, I'll give bands a call when I leave the gym and get you that today." Do you think you got it today? Do you? Do you really think you got it today? No. No, he didn't get it today. He got nothing. So 4 days later, on April 2nd, 2019, Fanto messages Jake again, wondering what's going on, and Jake says that he's been talking with the engineer for the past few days and just waiting for him to make an open, and that he'd get it to Fanto in a day or two. Which, of course, at this point we know it is a lie. It is a blatant lie. Because over a week later, on April 10th, Fanto had to message Jake once again, asking what was going on. I don't know what kind of bullshit Klingon cycle that these guys live on. He had been saying it would only be a day or two for the last month. A month is not a day, Jake. Does your brain connect to your hands when you type things, or do you just enjoy being an idiot? I'm not even gonna put you guys through the pain of having to see how many times after this point Fanto had to message back to Jake, and Jake says, "Oh, I'm talking to the engineer again, blah 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 blah," and absolutely nothing ends up happening, so I'm just gonna skip into when stuff does actually happen. All you need to know is that Jake then stopped responding to Fanto after May 2nd all the way until May 30th, where he responded saying he had been traveling and once again he would talk with the engineer. But once again, Jake would stop responding to Fanto until June 12th, 2019, where he would finally ask for Fanto's email, claiming he had the verse, and sent it to him. Fanto received it and thought everything was good. But on July 19th of 2019, which was now a few days off from a year after originally talking to young bands, he responded to Fanto after he was sent his story showing that they had a song together, and bands asked where he got the song with him, to which Fanto responded saying he paid for a feature over a year ago and Jake sent him that now. But Fanto ended up doing some more research for himself, and this was when he realized that this verse that he was sent of young bands was actually sent to someone else as well and already uploaded onto Spotify. I genuinely cannot imagine being that greedy and slimy of a human being to think that doing anything like this was relatively okay at all. The way that these guys take advantage of smaller artists is genuinely infuriating. Like, keep in mind that Fanto was told by bands it would be 2 to 3 days for him to get his feature back on July 22nd, 2018, and young bands took $2,500 from him while giving him absolutely nothing for almost a year until June 12th, 2019, just for it to be a scam feature that was given to someone else too. That right there to me cannot be seen as anything less than a scam. 100% cut and dry. Now, for this whole time, I've been saying mostly that this was done for over the process of a year. And this is because I actually found out about this whole mess after Fanto posted more tweets about it just recently on April 27th, 2020, which this was getting close to being almost 2 years since he was originally scammed with still no resolution. And after speaking to Fanto about the situation, it turned out that just a day after the tweets ended up going up, Jake then ended up messaging Fanto saying that he would give him money, and with that, the tweet also ended up getting taken down. So in my own opinion, this whole thing was not about making things right to Jake, because he had well over a year to be able to do that at this point. This to me seems as though Jake was more than anything worried about saving his own image and reputation, because at that point, Fanto's tweet was actually actually gaining quite a bit of traction. Now, Fanto has said he's not allowed to disclose an exact amount that he was actually given by Jake, so instead I asked him if what he received could be considered in the range of equal to what he paid bands originally, and Fanto said yes, it was very equal. So I am very happy for Fanto that he was finally able to get the situation resolved with getting his money, but that does not mean that this should be entirely ignored, because it still happened. And we need to remember that Fanto was scammed by these people for almost 2 full years. It should not take public outrage or 2 years of a person waiting for something for you to finally decide you want to resolve the issue. I'd also like to say that you should check out Fanto's music because it's actually pretty good and the man deserves the support after all the stuff he's dealt with. My personal favorite songs of his are called Black Widow and the other is Love Me. I'll put links to his SoundCloud in the description for those who want to check him out. And really, if you like music that's like by Convolk, Lil Peep, or maybe even Shinigami, you'll probably like him. But that's gonna do it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're interested in more content like this in the future, or possibly looking at my backlog content. I'd also like to give a huge shout out to all of my patrons this month, because all of you guys support me so much, and thank you. I love all you guys. And a special shout out to all of my $10 and up patrons this month, those being Farski, Midwest Funky, Helen, and Jojobean. Your extra support to this channel means the absolute world to me, and I am so grateful that you guys do anything close to what you do. But yeah, thank you all for watching. I hope you had a great time, and remember, as always, it should be art over algorithm. Goodbye.
Baby, I can't remember anything without you. I swear I wake up every day like, what did I do to deserve you? I never hurt you.